computer. Okay, that's another request I have of the class. If we ever start the class and you don't see me hit the record button, please remind me, and that will get you all out of having to come to these classes if you don't want to and just want to catch the recorded version. But if you don't remind me, then we can't all take advantage of the recordings. So I'll record this class and try to make a point of recording all the future classes and posting them out there on YouTube for anybody to see if you just can't make it on a Monday night. And if you've checked the syllabus out already, you've noticed that because I'm an adjunct, that has certain pros and cons, I guess. One of the pros is I have a ton of real world stories about how this has all worked for our clients, and I hope to be able to add some detail onto our class lectures that liven it up maybe just a little bit. But the con is I have a real job, and this is my part-time gig and really my hobby, and I treat it like my hobby, which means it always comes second to servicing my real job and my clients and everything we do at 2 West and Goldpath. So sometimes I can be a little hard to get a hold of, and I'm only available in real time to do these lectures every other week. On the off weeks, I'm just going to deliver a recorded lecture, which I already have out there and stored on YouTube, and I'll show you how to access those. Okay, let me blow this up a little bit, and we'll do the syllabus. Okay, so I'll give you the playbook on Burton Cushenberry. You know, like I mentioned, I am an adjunct, but I'm also a procrastinator. So some of you noticed that I didn't even have the syllabus up until yesterday, and when I did put it up, I mistakenly posted last semester's. So thank you to a couple of you that reached out. I got the right one up there, and you can go download this from our Canvas class now. And I'll preview that Canvas site here for you in a moment, because there's a ton of resources out there that you'll all want. So this is both Fin 5561 and 419. I've combined the courses on Canvas. We have master's students and undergrads combined into one. The material is going to be the same. All the coursework is going to be the same. So there's really nothing that we need to worry about there. Our Zoom room is on the syllabus. The prereqs for this class, the most important one is accounting. If you haven't had your introductory work in accounting in a year or two, you might be challenged to get going in this course. The first 4 weeks are going to be a little bit of a review of the prereqs, and they'll be the easiest part of this course by far. By the time we get into week number 5, 6, 7, and 8, we start getting very technical in the accounting. So if you're falling behind at all by that point, you're going to need to get some outside help. My availability down here, like I mentioned, you know, ideally I'd like to answer all your emails in real time, but I have competing commitments. So I just encourage you all to never ever feel like you're annoying me. Reach out via email. This is my cell phone up here, right here. This is my cell phone, so you can text me. This is my university email. You can, if you really need to get a hold of me, you can email me at work. You can find all my contact information on LinkedIn. Feel free to link in with me. Once you're in my network, then you're kind of connected via, you know, a second connection to everybody that I'm connected with. So if you want to meet somebody that I'm connected with, don't be afraid to ask. I'm always happy to put people in touch with one another. Our course objectives are going to be basically a really deep dive into the accounting. And what I want us to focus on when we go into the accounting is whether or not GAAP, generally accepted accounting practices, represent an accurate picture of the world. Are we telling the truth when we report GAAP? Because there's a lot of estimates and rules that go into the reporting of that, all of which are based on, you know, they were put in place for a reason, but sometimes they can distort the truth a little bit. And we have to know how they work and what their original intention was and how they affect the ratios and how they affect the reporting and balance sheets and financial statements. and then use a little bit of critical thinking to understand whether or not we might need to restate some of those financial statements. And that's the course in a nutshell. As we do all that, we're going to gain an awareness of ethics, and we'll spend a lot of time talking about how our management teams get paid and what conflicts of interest they might be subject to and how that might be influencing their thinking. And we're going to wrap all that up with our research report at the end of the semester. So the book that I'll teach from is McAnally, Summers, and Zhang. Here's an error in the syllabus. It's the 6th edition, but I know that this link is accurate. So this takes you out to the 6th edition. That's the one you need to buy. Get the online access. It comes with all of the online homework, and it also comes with videos and guided examples. And you may find that the videos that come with the textbook are a lot more interesting than listening to my online lectures. And if that's what you decide, feel free to bug out of these classes. I don't take attendance. I just count up the points at the end of the semester, and you're never going to hurt my feelings if I don't see you in class. So here's the code that you'll need to access our online classroom. Just click on that link, type in that code, and make sure you get access to the My Business course website. And I'll give you a preview of that here in just a minute. If you need some guidance on how to do that, there's a student guide right here, so download that and you can get some support on how to access that. So here's an intro to the homework. And the syllabus was written years ago when I started teaching this course, and it still is written as a practical guide on how to ace this class. So when the online assignments say that they're due a week later, that's because that's the best way to take this course. I recommend that if you want an A in the class, you read the book, you watch the videos that come with the text, you do the homework in advance, and you have it turned in before we lecture on the next class the following week. And that'll allow you to keep pace, it'll allow you to ask questions as we go, and it'll allow you to be engaged in real time as we work through module by module and basically knock off each one of these modules or widgets and make progress towards that end research assignment as we go. Okay, that's what I suggest. What I hold you accountable for, and this is on account of my laziness, but what I hold you accountable for is having these assignments in before I grade them. And I'm going to grade them at the end of the semester. So if you go a week and you don't have an assignment in, there's no penalty for that other than you're penalizing yourself because now you're behind in the class. So just know how I work. If you ever just behind on a week, you just know you're not going to get penalized. Okay. Our research project, this is going to take us 16 weeks. I'll give you some examples of that. They are lengthy. Every module that we cover in class over the next 15 weeks should be covered in that research report. And I'll have a lot more to say about that as we go. Here's the grading criteria breaks down as follows. We have 20% of the class is homework points. Now the homework is all on the My Business course website. I'll show you that here in a minute. Importantly, you can take that homework on that site as many times as you want to take it. So module 1, there's a homework assignment that's already been posted. It's 5 questions. You just go out there, start the homework, answer all the questions, turn it in. It's automatically graded by the system and you get a score back. And let's say your score is 80%. Well, if you're happy with 80%, you're done. If you're not happy with 80%, you just retake it. Do it again. It's gonna queue up again. It's algorithmically driven or it's dynamic, so the the questions look the same, but the numbers are just a little bit different. So, you kind of do really have to know it. And it's a great exercise in terms of getting you ready for the exam. But I say all this because there's no reason why these 200 points shouldn't be automatic. Everybody in class should get those 200 points, unless you just decide you don't want them or you don't need them. But there's no excuse for not getting them.
Professor, quick question.
Yeah, please.
So if we get 100% on a homework and then like keep using them to practice, will it revert to the best score or to the last score? I didn't pick
Best
that.
score. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not average, it's not best. So you get 80, 90, 95, and then 100. The grade book's going to show 100. So take it as many times as you want. There's no penalty for, I just consider it to be good study for the exam. Exam 1, 150 points. Let's see. Total exam is about half of the class. So we got 45% of the class are the exams. And this is where we'll differentiate the A's from the B's from the C's, because the exams have historically been pretty difficult. Last semester, I didn't have to curve any of them. I have had to curve some of them in the past. So either I don't know why last semester. Maybe I had a smarter class. Maybe I'm getting better at teaching. I don't know. Maybe the class figured out they needed to be tuning into the online lectures. Who knows? At any rate, here's one thing that I will tell you. If we get to the first exam, which is 150 points, and the average score is, I don't know, an 80, well, that's something I'd probably curve a little bit. I'd probably add some points to that. But I'm not going to add any points. And I mean, you're not going to be eligible for the curve unless you're up to date on your homework. So the homework's not due. I'm not going to penalize you for not having your homework in. But I'm also not going to reward you with a curve on the exam if you're not even doing your homework. So that's the fairest way that I've been able to award that curve in the past. And I mean, usually the way it works is that even some semesters I'll need a curve because the class scored an 80, but then I'll go back and I'll look at only those students who had their homework done, and the average of those students might be a 90%. Well, surprise, surprise, you get the homework done on time and you do a little bit better on the exam, no curve necessary. So I'll use a little bit of judgment there as we get towards the first exam. If you're struggling a little bit, don't worry. Again, that's why there's so many homework points available. We got 200 homework points. We got another 300 points for the research paper. These should be easy points. So you have half of the class is testable. That's real work. You got to know your stuff. Another half of the class are, I'm not going to call them gimmies because they take real work to do, but it's just time on your part. I mean, you can take the homework as many times as you want, and that research report, I'll grade in advance, meaning if you turn it in a few weeks before it's due, I'll give you advice and I'll critique it for you, and then you can go and make the changes and come back and get the A or the grade you need to pass the course. So I've had a lot of luck with this framework, and I think it'll work for us again this semester. Okay, here's the way our schedule breaks down. Tonight, we are talking about Module 1, so that just I'm going to frame up the whole semester. Tonight's like a big preview of everything that we're going to be talking about in the course. And I won't go into very much depth on the material that we review tonight, because since it is a preview, we're going to have a module where we go deep on this material. So we can move pretty quickly through this class, and I can spend more time giving you kind of a guided tour of the resources that are available to you. Since this is my first Zoom lecture, I don't know how to do this, but every semester in the past, I've had students complete a 3x5 info card, and this is one of the things that kind of helps me get to know everybody. And I'll take those info cards and I'll try to remember everybody's name. I don't usually do it. It usually takes me 16 weeks before I can get everybody's name right and and say hello when we're passing in the hall. So I don't know how that's going to work in Zoom. I don't know if I just give up on that altogether or what, but there's 10 points in it for you. So go ahead and instead of a 3x5 card, just send me an email with a little bit of your information and give me a picture in that email, and I'll do my best to try to get to know y'all. Okay. Week 2. Homework due. So I'm already behind. If I go up here to week 1, what I wanted to do tonight was to read module 1, view the lectures and guided examples, and then complete the 3x5 card. So just do that whenever you have a chance. Now for next week, what I'd like done is to read module 2, no big deal. So I'm asking you to read in advance, view the e-lectures, I'll show you where those are, and view the guided examples. That helps everybody get a good classroom discussion in, or at least show up prepared to ask any questions that they just didn't understand when they were going through the material. Then module 1 homework will be due, and by due I mean this is best practices. Try to get that in by next week, because that again gives you an opportunity to ask any questions. And then we have a proxy analysis. So the proxy analysis requires you to select your research company. And I'll show you where the list of those is here in a moment. But the first thing I want you to do once you've selected your research company is to find the proxy. And a proxy is a financial statement that's filed once a year in accompaniment with the company's annual report. So an annual report is usually their 10K filing, and you have some management commentary that goes along with that. Well, if you go out to the SEC's website, I'll show you how to do this. You'll find something that's called a proxy or a definitive disclosure document. And it's all the good stuff. You get management salaries and conflicts of interest and incentive comp and options and grants and sweetheart deals. I want to know all that. And I want you to write me up a little 2-page analysis of what you find in that proxy statement. And I don't expect this to be original work. You can cut and paste directly out of the proxy, but what has to be in there is what's listed here. Management's comp, stock options, salary, incentive comp, and what it's linked to. So usually salary deals are linked to growth in earnings per share or a certain return on equity number, or an options package might have a vesting schedule associated with increasing stock price over a period of time. Why do I want you to know all that? Well, I want you to know all that because I want you to be able to think like your management team for the rest of the semester. For the rest of the semester, for the next 16 weeks, we're going to be looking at this accounting treatment, and we're going to be playing a little game that I call follow the penny or find the penny. So imagine you're a CEO and you have stock options that are linked to earnings per share, and you're trying to figure out whether or not you want to buy a building or lease a building, or you're trying to figure out whether or not you want to use LIFO accounting or FIFO accounting, or you're trying to figure out whether or not you want to use half a dozen other accounting practices that we'll be studying this semester, and they all have a difference on your earnings per share number. Well, which one are you most likely to pick? Well, if that's why I want you to do the proxy analysis. I want you to know the impact to the bottom line of the person calling the shots inside of the organization that you're thinking about doing evaluation on. Because if you know that, you're more likely to think skeptically. And that's what I'm trying to train you to do as analysts, to think skeptically about these companies. And in particular, to think skeptical about the people making the decisions that run these companies. And by the end of the semester, I want you to have a good opinion, a well thought out opinion on the quality of the management teams running these businesses. And I want you to be able to tell me about that. And you're going you're going to get 3 minutes to do that in a verbal presentation at the end of the semester. And I want to hear about your management teams. I want to hear what you think of them. Are they people of high integrity? Do you trust their decision making? Or is this a high quality, high caliber management team? And why? So that's the beginnings of that start tonight, and will be due next week with this proxy analysis. I find that some students can get overwhelmed with this, but please don't. If you don't get it done by next week, it's just like with everything else in class. There's no penalty, but you're also beginning to fall behind, so it's discouraged. Okay. All right, moving on. Let's see here. Okay, then we move into Labor Day, and after Labor Day, we'll come back. You'll see that
I have a question.
Please jump in.
Okay, I have 2 questions. So the first is the email that you would like us to send. Should we send it through Canvas or just the normal email app? I know on Canvas we can contact you.
Yeah, either one's fine.
Okay, and then the proxy assignment, will there be a link on Canvas to turn that in, or should we email it to you?
I think there's a link out there on Canvas to turn it in, but if you email it to me, that's just as good.
Thank you.
Whatever's easiest for you. I'm pretty workable. I think you'll find I'm pretty laid back as it pertains to this class. You know, give me one of your high five symbols if you consider yourself to be type A. Okay, I don't. Okay, I see a couple. I don't have a full view, so I can't see everybody right now. But to all of you type A's, I would just say, relax. We'll get through it. We got 16 weeks. We're gonna get through it. Nobody. I'm not taking off any points. This stuff can be complex and esoteric and opaque, and that's fine. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get through, and I've done this a lot now, so it usually works out just fine. Okay, on the 14th, September 14th, that's going to be our first recorded lecture, and I'll show you where those are when we go through Canvas. I've already posted an announcement with a link to the YouTube page that I use to host all of the recorded lectures from prior semesters. So I'll be leaning on those a little bit to lighten my workload, just on account of being an adjunct. And then that is also where I will be posting tonight's lecture and all future lectures that we do in real time. Okay, and then after that, we're just working through the semester module by module. We have 15 modules in 15 weeks plus a final exam, except there's not really a final exam, which you ought to be thrilled with, because I think the first 3 or 4 times I taught this class, I had a final, and I also had the research report due the final week of class. And I just figured out that that was an overwhelming amount of stress to put on the students in the class. So, and it was a comprehensive final. So now, in lieu of a comprehensive final, I just have that final research report due. And that'll come with a verbal presentation to support it. But I think you'll find that that's really a pretty easy job. The research report, every semester, we get to about week 11, and I call it freak out week, because your students are, I'm the perfect example. If I were taking this course, I would do exactly what students do, which is procrastinate until about week 11, when you're thinking, okay, I still have 3 or 4 weeks to get my research report done. And then you sit down and you're looking at the enormity of the project. You're like, oh man, I am really far behind. And I always have 1 or 2 in my class that are just freaking out. And I try to give them as much guidance as I can. But if you don't want that to be you, then try as hard as you can to do just a little bit on that researcher project every week. And even if that little bit is just gathering your source documents, that's a huge head start. You will thank yourself for putting in just that little bit of work as we go. Okay, so we're progressing down through, you see, we kind of have an every other week type of cadence down through Thanksgiving. We come back from Thanksgiving, we have exam 3 plus one more class. And then you'll see that last week of class, we have, so here we are, the final exam. In lieu of a final exam, we just have to complete your research reports. So there's really no class week 15. We're just completing research reports there. Our last class will be December 7th.
Professor,
Yeah.
when will the presentations be?
They'll be here on the 7th. Presentations will be on the 7th. And then you don't have to have your research report due until the 14th. Okay.
Mr. Cushionberry, are the exams in class?
Yeah, hey Brian, you can just call me Vern. Everybody in the class, the first names are fine. The exams are online, and I think that that's a change that I made a couple of semesters ago that seems to have gone over really well. We have a really good textbook. They have a tremendous amount of online resources, and one of those resources are online exams. So the way they work is I'll create an online exam, and you will have the ability to take that exam through that website anytime during I usually set the test window for about a week. So we don't do it in class, but anytime during exam week, when you're ready, you're going to be able to go out and say, start exam 3. And then you're going to get 90 minutes. And that's where it gets a little tricky, because an online exam, you know, it's open book, it's open note, it's open internet. If you had an unlimited amount of time, well, you just use Google until you found all the right answers, and everybody would get 100%. So the only way to kind of keep it honest and really test the knowledge that's in your brain is to time it. So the way I advise students is open book, open note, open internet, but you're only going to have time to look up maybe 20 or 30% of the exam questions. If your plan is to take that exam and rely on the open note nature, you'll run out of time and fail it. So 90 minutes, if you've done the homework, kept pace with the exam, is plenty of time. But if you've fallen behind in class and you're leaning on the open book nature of the exam, you're really going to struggle through it. And let's see, another control that I use is that the questions are randomly generated, so they're all mixed up, so you can't take it with your neighbor. So don't try that. And then everybody gets different questions too. So the text is, the authors call it algorithmic. So if you're being asked to compute return on equity, 2 students might have the identical question, but with different numbers that are used in the input of that ratio. So you'll have different answers. But as far as the calculation is concerned, and as far as the application is concerned, it's identical. So that's another way that we mix it up a little bit. But that gives us more time to both lecture and review in class and work on those reports. So we don't have to actually have any exam time in class. So that's worked out well. Okay. I think the rest of this syllabus is kind of just the standard that you see in most of syllabus. I'm still a little behind. We're on Canvas now. The syllabus says Blackboard. I don't take attendance. The syllabus says class attendance is required, but it's really just, you know, we say it's required because that's how you make the most of the class, but I don't take attendance. Academic.
One more question for you on that.
Yeah.
The weeks where you've got recorded lectures, is there a necessity to come to a Zoom during this specific Monday night time, or are those just posted for review at our own leisure? Or?
Yeah, it's at your own leisure. There's no, the Zoom room won't even be open. I won't be here. I'll make myself available if you need me those weeks, but my experience has been that I'm not needed.
Okay.
So,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I have another question about the homework. So I see on the syllabus that we cover maybe module 2 next week, and then the module 1 homework, it's suggested we have it done by then.
Mhm.
But would it be helpful if we complete the module 2 homework as well? Because that's what we would be covering in that class.
Yeah, you're an overachiever. Power to you. Yeah, do it. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, I'm impressed. Yes, it would be helpful because I'm gonna lecture on that, and you're gonna be better able to ask questions if you've stumbled on homework too. That'd be a great way to approach the class.
Thank you.
I can count how many students I've had on one hand that have done it that way, but maybe you're the one. Okay, what else do I have in here? Academic misconduct, recording of classroom activity. Okay, I'm gonna bug out of here and I'm gonna go over to our Canvas room. Error, stale request. Let's try this again. I don't want a stale request. I don't know what the hell that means. Okay, here we are. FIN 5561. This includes 419. I've had the classes combined, so we all should be in the same place. Okay, I'm going to go through all these menus one by one and give you a little background on what's going on in here. Okay, I have 4 announcements in here. The ones that you need to be focused on right now are the YouTube page link. This is where you're going to go for the recorded lectures. Let's open that in a new tab. If you click on that link, it's going to take you out here to my YouTube page where I've uploaded a bunch of lectures from past semesters. So when we get to week 3, I don't know what's going on here. It says I have good internet access, but it's just spinning. Here we go. Okay, so here's the videos. Here's module 3. So when we get to module 3, you have a 45-minute pre-recorded lecture right here. So just come watch this. Now, normally I would supplement that. 45 minutes is not 3 hours. So normally I would supplement that with other information on the research project or whatever we happen to be covering that night. And I've included a lot of additional resources both in Canvas and on the site, including, here's a 5-minute video on how to select your company. And I'm going to go through that tonight because I want everybody to be able to select your company. After you've selected the company for your research project, well, now you need to begin compiling what's probably, well, if you printed it all out, it'd probably be a 4 or 5 inch stack of resources that you're going to draw from to compile this report. And I have a 30-minute video that teaches you how to use all the databases that are available to you through the UMKC library to begin that process. Plus Bloomberg, plus Morningstar, plus everything in the finance lab. The resources that UMKC has available to you are incredible. A Bloomberg subscriptions, the Bloomberg rep that calls on me, they want to sell me a $30,000 subscription to that thing. ProQuest, another $15,000. Morningstar, another $25,000. So you have incredible resources right here. We need to learn how to use them. If you haven't invested the time to learn how to use some of these resources yet, make sure you make a point of doing that while you're at UMKC, and I'll try to steer you in that direction. Another thing that you're going to want to begin early is how to build the bibliography. And this is a video out here that teaches you how to use Microsoft Word's bibliography tool. And once you know how to use that, you're probably going to kick yourself if you've never used it before, because it makes building one of these works cited pages just a piece of cake. And start doing that now, because you should have every resource that you download, every resource that you stumble across, you should upload into your bibliography. And that's one of the most impactful things that you can do to really impress somebody when they're reading your research report, because that's how you show off all the work you've done. I'm going to skip this next video, and then you can see I have all the modules recorded out here, or most of them anyway. So if you ever miss a lecture, it's out here. Okay, under announcements is our Morningstar login information. So I'm going to take you over here, and I'm going to log into Morningstar. You have access to this system through UMKC. Just go to that announcement, and you have the login and password right there. So type them into the email and password function, and you're going to get into Morningstar Direct Cloud. Now, this is our screen. See here, it says FIN 5561, approved companies screen. Well, I set this screen up to go out and identify companies that lend themselves well to the type of analysis we're going to be doing this semester. So you have to pick from this list. In the past, I've opened it up to just any company that you had an interest in. That was a mistake, because we get all kinds of companies that are great companies and they make really interesting research projects, but we also have to have an ability to do proper ratio analysis and analyze the balance sheet. And to do that kind of stuff, we need conventional accounting. We need domestic companies predominantly. We need the right types of industries, meaning no banks, no REITs, no MLPs. And we need companies with a lengthy enough track record to actually go back 5 or 10 years so that we can do a proper analysis. So sometime this week, probably today or tomorrow, I want you to come out here. I want you to click on this list, and I want you to identify the company you'd like to do your research report on, and then you can do your proxy assignment. So the search is dynamic. Every time you click on it, you get new companies, and it looks like there's plenty out here to select. I think I saw somebody already went out here and did this and selected Vertex or something like that. So when you come out, hopefully there'll be something on here that you want to do some work on. Gilead or Intel or Starbucks or TD or Walgreens or whatever, something out here that you like. So you say, yep, Walgreens, that's mine. Well, now you have another job, because I don't want any duplicates. I don't want anybody working together. It has to be unique. So the way you make that unique is we come down in here into discussions, and you'll see that we have a company selection forum. So now you click on that company selection forum, and it's first come, first serve. So you just say, Walgreens, mine, claimed it, post, and now you have rights to that company. Nobody can take it from you. Make sure you read the forum before you post. I mean, Chad already claimed Vertex, so don't let there be another 20 posts and then somebody else claim Vertex, because you won't get it. And if you start working on Vertex and now all of a sudden we're 3 or 4 weeks into the course, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to say, sorry, my friend, Chad already claimed Vertex. You got to pick something else. You wasted all that work. So read the forum before you post. Okay, so that's an introduction to Morningstar. We'll talk more about that. Modules. Most of the material stored out here on Canvas is underneath this modules link, and there is a ton of stuff here. So you have information on the proxy analysis. This is where you can get an overview of the assignment. There's also some supporting material out here that talk about corporate governance. Click on this, read it. In the proxy, you will probably also see some language about corporate governance and corporate governance practices. this is a good way to begin to get a feel for how serious your management team is. And I call it shareholder friendliness. Are they shareholder friendly? Are they running the company like they would as a shareholder? Or are they running it as their own little pet project and Robin Hood scheme, stealing from the shareholders' pockets, only in reverse? So take a look at that. Also notice right here, I have posted the solutions manual. So when you get really, really, really frustrated because you can't figure out the homework, click on this file. I have literally given you the answers to all the homework. Now you're going to have to do some digging because the solutions manual is huge and the questions are algorithmic, which means that the numbers might be changed slightly from what you see in the solutions manual, but it's the blueprint for finding those answers. So I've tried my absolute hardest to make this homework and the points associated with it achievable and doable. And not only that, but the solutions manual is a terrific way to study for the exam. So you go to the back of each of those modules and you'll see 3 or 4 pages associated with homework questions. I've cherry picked 5 of them for points for this class, but there's another 30 of them at the back of every module, and you have the answers. So there's plenty to study come exam time. So check that out. Then we have the research project. So everything that you would want to know about the research project. Another link to the company selection forum, which we just looked at. And then we have some templates associated with the research project. So we'll get into these later in class, but I want those all to have a very identical look and feel. I have no tolerance whatsoever for you deviating from the format of this research project at all. We get to the end of the semester and I'm going to have 30 of these to grade. So I have to have them all look identical. I have to have all of the cover pages look the same. I want to know where to go to get the quick analysis of your management team, your mode or competitive advantage, the mispricing, and the more standardized these get, the quicker I can grade them. Okay, let's talk about some old sample reports. So this Qualcomm, CBS, these are 2 of the best reports that have ever been written in this class, and they're right out here. So when you get stressed out about what this research report is supposed to look like, this is what it's supposed to look like. And this is the quality and the caliber of the report that I'm looking for. So if you can do this, you will get an A on the exam. And you can see that this student has this report in accordance with the template that I'm looking for. The template's out there, and they have the kind of the profile of Qualcomm, investment highlights, moat. We're going to talk about a lot about moat tonight. That's really a company's competitive advantage. Mispricing. That's when we apply this analytical framework, this analytical skill set, what we're looking for is a company that's worth more than what it's trading for. And when you see that, we call it a mispricing. And then we also have MARC here. MARC is the ESG component. So environmental, social, governance. We're looking for those good governance practices. What about this company makes it attractive to you from a social standpoint or from a kind of a good citizenry standpoint? Why would you be proud to be associated with this company? ESG is the fastest growing field in investing right now. 1 in 6 of every new dollars that are put to work in the field of investing are flowing into ESG products. So we need to be familiar with what our management teams are doing. And you can see here that when you break it down like that, you have, you have management, moat, mispricing, and MARC. So we call that the 4 M's. And just that 4M's framework is what we'll kind of be queuing off of all semester long. And then ratio analysis followed by a 67-page report on Qualcomm. And that 67-page report is broke down into a 10 to 15-page executive summary where you give me all of the distilled, most hard-hitting facts and rationale on why you believe this company is a good investment, and then a 50-page appendix that covers in detail every other module that we're going to be reviewing for the next 15 weeks. So the sooner you can download this and look at it in detail, and that will help you get familiar with what's expected of these research reports.
Professor, in that section, could we also say like to short the company if we don't feel it's a good investment, or?
Absolutely. So it's at the end of the semester, it's your job to put a value on it. So you're gonna assess that value independently of where the stock price is. So for the sake of Qualcomm, let's say that you came up with a value of $50 per share, and it's trading at $70 per share. Well, that's a short thesis. Now you're gonna have to defend that, but that's really what we're gonna be working on for 16 weeks. So you should be very well prepared to defend that. Now, for selfish reasons and because it just makes the class work a little bit better, it's nice if we get by thesis. So I've set the Morningstar report. I've tried to position the tables in your favor, so to speak, by setting up a screen that only pulls from companies that Morningstar has highly rated. So these are all companies that Morningstar, for one, feels like are buys. Well, okay, great. That's good to know. I hold Morningstar's work in high esteem. They generally structure their analyses and discounted cash flow analysis in a manner that in a way that's consistent with the way we teach this class. So this is one of the best starting points to get familiar with the work that you're going to be doing on these companies. So come out here, click on Starbucks, and pull up the analyst research. So here's the company report. Print this off, get familiar with what Morningstar has to say, because they've already done a lot of your work for you. One other thing I'll say about this research report is I don't want anybody to get overwhelmed by this. It's not your job to write this report. It's your job to synthesize this report. And what I mean by that is, you know, I'm not teaching you to be good writers. You should have gotten that in undergrad or in other classes, and that's a very valuable skill. But I want to see your analytical skill. So feel free to cut and paste all over the place. Just cite your sources. You know, what your sources should look like. Let me get down here to the end of this document. Your sources should look like this. Here we go. This is a 3 to 4 page works cited. So he's got all his sources here. He did a tremendous amount of work compiling all these. He watched that works cited video that I had posted on YouTube. And then you can see that this is impressive. To go through all of these sources is really good work. And I don't have any problem with you cut and pasting from any one of these sources as long as it's properly cited. And then that cover page is where you put your analytical work on display. And you really show me how you're synthesizing all this. So go find it, cite it, put it in your research report, and then give me a compelling argument about why you believe what you believe. Because one of the best ways to kind of come out this project is by finding research reports that, well, in that resources video, and I'll take you through this next week also, you'll go through all the databases that UMKC gives you access to, and one of the most powerful ones is Reuters. And Reuters has all the research reports that are written by Goldman Sachs and UBS and Deutsche Bank and Merrill Lynch and so on and so forth. And typically you can find a bullish case and a bearish case. We'll look at both of those, maybe even cite from both of those, because they'll both have great information, and then give me your opinion. Well, I agree with so-and-so because he argues this, and it's consistent with the way I see the world. And then pull a little bit from management, and well, you get the gist of it. We're synthesizing at this point. Okay. Going back to the modules here, and I'm continuing the tour of Canvas. There's also a homework discussion board out here. If you get stuck in the homework because everybody's got similar versions of the homework, post the question out here before you ask me about it. There's a good chance somebody else has already answered it. So look there first, please. PowerPoints are out here for every module. I also have practice tests out here. When you get to that first test, come out here, look at these practice tests. Those will serve you well. And then that's about it. I have a video posted for module 2, but that's redundant because all these videos are out there on YouTube now. I found that to be a better forum. And then there's a whole bunch under other resources and content. I might refer to some of this stuff as we go throughout the semester. Just absolutely great information. This is some of the most informative pieces that relate to some of the subject matter that we'll be covering this semester. So you might hear me guide you to some of those resources as we move through the semester, but nothing for you to be aware of immediately, unless you're just an extreme overachiever. And then Fiona, have at. I didn't even get a smile with that one. All right. Okay, let's move on to the My Business Courses website. So we are using version 6E of the text. So you'll click on that link in the syllabus and you're going to come out here. And let me go to the course here, and you're going to get a view that looks like this. So you have access to the text. Well, let me just take you out to that text. So when you click on the text, the whole book is up here in virtual form, and you can see how it breaks out. So spend some time with that. The technology is, if you can have this read to you.
Cambridge Business Publishers 1 to 6 Module 1 Framework for Analysis and Valuation Business.
So if you're a health nut like me, you can tee that up and listen to it through your headphones when you go running in the morning. Every 2 years I have to polish off 80 hours of continuing education just as a CPA. So I'll usually push that continuing education through my headphones while I run, and you can do the same if that helps you out. I get some pretty strange looks because sometimes I'm not even wearing my headphones. I'm just letting it blast. So I'm running on the trails, listening to accounting techniques. And people look at me a little strange, but it's okay. Okay, back to
1 to 11 Cambridge Business Publishers Module 1 Framework.
Stop that. Okay, where do I want to go now? Well, I don't know how to get there, so I'm just going to go back to the front door. Manage courses. Okay, so when you do get logged in, you're going to see a screen that looks like this with Module 1. So come down here, click on Module 1, and you'll see that I've already uploaded the first homework assignment. So you'll click on that. These homework questions are drawn directly from the end of the chapters. If you're struggling with them, go back, click on that solutions manual. It'll give you a little guidance. You can also click on the videos associated with Module 1. So you have a link to the book. You also have e-lectures out here for every learning objective. So if your question is, if your homework is on learning objective number 5 and you're confused for whatever reason, just come back out here and click on learning objective number 5 and play the video, and it's going to queue up.
In this e-lecture, we're going to consider learning objective 5.
So you can navigate, you know, to whatever you're having trouble with. And then we have some guided examples of, you know, the actual reviews. So, you know, here again, the text comes with reviews of certain material. So
Hello, this video concerns review 1-7.
So find all that information. It's terrific. Click on the homework. Because this is a new version of the text this year, I've only uploaded homework 1 so far, but I'm going to try to get the rest of it uploaded this week. So give me a little time with that and have some patience, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I've covered the syllabus. I've covered the proxy analysis. I've covered the Morningstar screen that I want you to choose from. I've covered the My Business Courses website. I think that's a good kind of opening tour of the class and what's going to be expected, and I'll have more information for you as we go. Don't stress out. I'm going to pause there for questions before I jump into lecturing on Module 1 tonight. Okay, so I got
James
nothing.
Brown.
Yeah, James.
Joined the meeting.
Oh, James joined. Okay. Hey, James. Okay, Matt had a question. Where did you say the list for the companies is located? The list for the companies is located under announcements. You're going to see that I have posted the Morningstar login info. So go right there, Morningstar login info. And then I want you to go to this website right here with this login information and this password. That's going to take you out to, I'll go through the front door again. That's going to take you out to this website. There's the email, there's the password. You're going to click sign in. And when you click sign in, you're going to see that screen has been set up right here. FIN 5561 approved companies screen. Click on that. And it's going to take you to this list, and anything on that list is fair game. And again, after you come to this list and pick your company, what do you have to do next? Now you got to go back to Canvas and claim it. And you're going to claim it in the discussions company selection forum. Hey, look at that. So Chad was there at the start of class, and now Intel's gone, Microsoft's gone, Cerner's gone, Starbucks, Columbia, you're on the ball. I love it. Alphabet. Okay, those are all great companies. Cerner's a good one. That's local. That's a good pick. Nice job. So I think, and you know, another thing that I like the way you all are thinking here, because the companies you've selected so far are going to have an absolute ton of information available, and that's that makes it easier when you're compiling your report. Okay, could you tell me again how to access my business course material? Yes, let me. So that material is in the syllabus. You come down here, and this section of the syllabus tells you how to get access to the book and that material. So you're on page 2 of the syllabus. Here's a link to the book. And when you click that link, you're going to want to access the course by typing in this code. It will ask you for a code. This is the code to our class. So you type in that course ID, and it's going to direct you to our class. And once you get inside of our class, you're going to have access to all that material that I just previewed and the homework assignments that I post on a weekly basis. How am I doing with this Zoom class? You guys got any feedback? Here's another one from James. Do we have access to all of the data software outside of campus? The answer to that question is yes, but you have access to everything like right here, you have access to all of this. You have access to all of the databases, and you can get a preview of that by watching this resources video. I will also be going over it next week in class. And then the but is there are a few programs like Bloomberg that are only available through the finance lab. And those are terrific programs, and I encourage you all to try to use them this semester, but you don't have to, and it's certainly not a requirement of the class. You can get all of this done without that. Okay, gang. Is it open? Yes, it is open. I don't know what the hours are, but it's open. I know the guy that's in there 15 hours a week, and I'm happy to put you in touch with him if you want to go check it out. Okay, it's 8:09. I need to take a short break, so let me hit the men's room. I'll be back at we'll just take 5 minutes. We'll get going again at 8:15, and we'll jump into module 1. Okay, 8:15. Let's get going again here. I got module 1. I just tried to put the PowerPoint into full screen mode. So somebody give me a thumbs up if you can see the module 1 PowerPoint. Is it okay? Thank you. Appreciate that, Brian. Like I said, this is a very high overview of the whole semester, really. This is going to preview the next 16 modules. So I'm going to move through this fairly quickly because a lot of it is review material. I'll give you some guidance on the way I approach these PowerPoints. If it's review material, I generally either figure you already know it or can be responsible for that outside of class. We don't need to be devoting class time to all of this material. But if it's just because it's not covered in class, does not mean it won't be on the exam. I want to be very clear about that. All of this material is testable. I won't lecture over it all, but it's all testable. So please be mindful of that. Okay, just kind of setting up the class a little bit. You know, what are we doing when we talk about valuation? Because there's a lot of uses for this, and when you hear me lecture, you're going to be hearing about valuation through from the perspective of a portfolio manager. I build portfolios on behalf of my clients. It's my job to find good stocks and bonds and other investments in great companies with great management teams. So I think like an investor. But management needs financials, creditors, lenders, rating agencies, regulatory authorities. You know, everybody on this list are looking for an accurate representation of the dollars and cents and profit margins and ratios and everything that we're going to be looking at this semester, and they all have different reasons, different purposes for that. And I imagine a good portion of you in this class are employed. So you would probably like to know a little bit about the ratio analysis of the companies that you work with, because that's going to inform you with regard to the likelihood that you're going to get paid next month. And there are no shortage of companies who have been unable to pay their employees from time to time. So, you know, as an employee, you're interested in this. Okay, you know, I'm gonna X out of this. I don't like this. End slideshow. I like to be able to just scroll down and have it flip one slide at a time. So I'm gonna use it like that. I think you can probably all see it just as well. If not, speak up and I'll change it again. Okay. This slide is trying to make a very simple point. Companies, by and large, are comprised of claims on the ownership of the company. And those claims come from owners, meaning stockholders, and non-owners, meaning debt holders. And that's the basic accounting equation. You go back to accounting, and what's the basic accounting equation? Well, you have assets, and that's the company. The company is made up of assets equals liabilities, that's the claim of debt holders, plus equity. Those are the claims of stockholders. So that's a pretty simple and basic accounting equation. We don't need to belabor that. This is a great tool. This is the whole class on one slide. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Porter's 5 forces, SWOT analysis, a lot of the terms that you picked up in probably one of your entry-level management classes. All of that applies to kind of the competitive positioning of the companies that we're going to be analyzing. Can't really forecast the company's financials into the future unless you have an understanding of what their competitive position is in the marketplace. So we're going to be looking at that a little bit tonight. That's modules 1 and 2. And then we're going to move into the meat of the course, which is modules 3 through 10. And we're going to go into some, well, we're just going to take an in-depth look at the accounting. Once we understand the accounting, we can forecast the financial statements. Once we forecast those financial statements into the future, we can use our, now we're putting on our, you know, our financial analyst hat, and we're discounting those cash flows back using a DCF, a discounted cash flow forecast, plus some other valuation techniques to put a real value on the companies. That's how we know whether or not they might be mispriced, and that's how we know whether or not they might represent a real buying opportunity. So there's 4 types of activities that we're going to be looking at, and surprise, surprise, these loosely correspond with the statement of cash flows, where you have financing activities, investing activities, and operating activities, and then our authors add a 4th point here, which are planning activities. So I see some of you taking notes. I just want to remind you that all these slides are available on the Canvas website. So that's a good place to start. Okay, let me. Identify and discuss the users and suppliers of financial statement information. Well, we briefly touched on users, so that would include management, employers, the federal government, other regulators, stockholders, bondholders, other stakeholders, other vendors. I used to do competitive analysis for Sprint way back in the day. It was one of my first jobs out of college. I was doing mergers and acquisitions, and it was a lot of fun, but that was, you know, decades ago. It was in the middle of the tech bubble, and we were working on the coolest project you could ever possibly imagine yourself working on. We were getting ready to put the internet on the phone, which was, you know, at the time was just groundbreaking. And we were the largest mobile phone operator in the country. And I worked on a team of analysts that were all tasked with cataloging and uploading into a proprietary database all of the financial statements of our competitors, because we wanted to understand their competitive positioning and their network dynamics, because it was, I mean, the competition was fierce, and we were trying to gain toeholds in metropolitan service areas across the country so that we could get a competitive advantage. And it was fun work. And those jobs are available to all of you. But here our authors give you, you know, more information on just the types of people that use the financial statements, and then obviously the publishers or the companies that we're going to be doing an analysis on this quarter. Your primary 2 statements are the annual report, which is called the 10K, and the 10Q, which is the quarterly report. Now, each of those are going to come with financial statements and explanatory notes, and the notes are where you get all of the detail. And the management discussion and analysis is where you get all of the excuses. So I say that a little jokingly, a little bit tongue in cheek, but it's important too that everybody in this class recognizes that when you're reading the MD&A, you're getting the party line. So the officers of the company, they write these reports, and therefore you're getting the information that they want you to know. If there's any information that, well, maybe it's a black eye on the company, or maybe it's something that they'd like to bury, or maybe they'd be a lot happier if that just didn't come to light for another quarter. Well, where are you going to find that? You're going to find that in the notes. And the notes are the fine print in the back of every single one of these statements. And one of your first jobs for this company research project is to find your company's annual report. And then to begin, and I say begin because it's going to take you the whole class, to familiarize yourself with the notes at the back of that report. And that's where you get all the good stuff. All the detail is in the notes. The problem is they're excruciating to read. And that's by design, because if a management team doesn't want you to find something, they're going to give you some word salad at the back of that report that you're going to have to read 20 times to understand what's going on. And you're likely going to have to call the investor relations department and ask a bunch of questions to really get at the truth of the matter. It happens all the time. One of my favorite accounting blogs, it changed names. It used to be called footnoted.org, but they got bought because this lady was so good. But she would recommend that when you read a 10K, her advice was read it from back to front. Because if you start with page 1 and you read it through to the end, you're polluting your brain with all the information that management wants you to read. And I recognize I'm being a little skeptical here, and that's kind of the way I think. I always begin from the standpoint that management, they're a bunch of crooks until they prove otherwise. Well, her contention was the same. Management's a bunch of crooks until they prove otherwise. So don't read what they want you to read. Read the 10K in reverse order. Start with the notes at the back of the 10K. Start with the good stuff, or any of the kind of the juicy gossip, or the stuff that they don't want you to see first. And then if you don't find anything that's alarming, well, start to shift your framework a little bit and say, well, maybe this company's worth my time. Maybe this is a good management team. Maybe this is worth a little bit more digging. Okay, moving on here. I want to pause briefly on Regulation FD. This was a really big thing. Oh, what was it? About 2002, maybe? Can't believe it's been that long. I'm getting old. Doesn't seem like that long ago. But Reg FD is something you still hear about, and it really leveled the playing field in the industry of investing. Before Reg FD came out, it was legal for management teams to disclose material information to one group or another group of investors. And the SEC kind of cast a light on the nature of what was going on, and they said, no, that's not really fair. You're giving different groups of investors a competitive advantage and allowing them to enrich themselves with this non-public information. So they came out with a new set of rules. They called it Reg FD. And now, on account of Reg FD, anytime a management team or a company wants to disclose anything that's material in nature, they have to broadcast it to the entire community of investors at the same time, which is why companies usually have public earning calls associated with each of these releases. And anybody can dial into those. And I would challenge each of you to dial into an earnings call for the companies that you select to do your research report on. And you'll have an opportunity this semester. At some point during the semester, your company will report earnings. And it's really a pretty interesting opportunity for you to experience that if you haven't already done so in another class. And I hereby deputize everybody in this class as a financial analyst of Two West Capital Advisors. So for the purposes of getting on the call, you all work for me and you're part of my analyst group, and that will identify you as a professional in the space. And if you want to ask a question, you might be able to get some airtime. So bonus points if you do. International accounting standards. I'll just pause here to mention that there might be a couple times in this class where we will briefly touch on these. Your textbook does a good job of identifying the similarities and differences between FASB or GAAP and IASB at the back of each one of the modules that we'll be reviewing this semester. So you might just take note of that. It won't show up on the exam. And make sure that you don't pick a company that uses IASB, and that'll probably be all you need to know about it for the purposes of this class. But for the most part, they're pretty much the same with a few notable exceptions. Okay, I'm going to skip learning objective number 3 altogether because it talks about the financial statements, and well, frankly, you should all have this down. So review this on your own time. If any part of this is a little bit foreign to you, or if you've been out of practice for a while, get some help early on, because it only gets to be a steeper and steeper learning curve as we move through this semester if you don't have a good handle on the accounting. Okay, I did want to spend some time on learning objective number 4 tonight. Assess a business's operations within the context of a competitive environment. So when I briefly previewed the research report that was posted as an example, the Qualcomm research report, I stopped on the 4 M's: management, moat, mispricing, and mark. And learning objective number 4 in module 1 talks about a moat. And that term moat comes from Warren Buffett. Buffett refers to a company's moat as their ability to stave off competition for an extended period of time into the future. What is it about a company like Microsoft or Starbucks or Cisco or or Disney? What is it about the operations of that business that allows them to compound returns in excess of their cost of capital for many years into the future? And that's an unusual circumstance that a company has a sustainable competitive advantage. Sustainable being the key word. It's almost a violation of fundamental economic law that a company is able to do that, because the natural forces of competition in a capitalistic system should erode that moat over time. If you're earning an extremely high rate of return, you're going to attract the attention of other people in the business community. So I don't know, whatever industry it is, you're selling widgets of some kind and you're earning high rates of return. Well, your neighbor is going to see that and they're going to say to themselves, I should be selling widgets too. And you're going to attract competition. And that competition over time is going to depress your profit margins. So moats, it shouldn't exist that you should be able to compound returns for many years in the future. And yet there are certain observable aspects of business models that run contrary to that. One example would be Google. You can't just go pop up a new search engine and be able to and expect to compete with Google. Or Walmart, you can't just go pop up a new discount store and expect to compete with Walmart, because there are certain aspects of Walmart's embedded distribution system that serve as a natural moat. Railroads are a good example. Once you have a railroad built, it's cost prohibitive for somebody else to build a railroad right beside it. Utilities are a good example. So Morningstar does a good example of also using that same moat language. So I want you to really key in on how they define that. And then as you're gaining a familiarity with the company that you choose, I also want you to begin to understand what we call Porter's value chain, Porter's 5 forces, and a SWOT model. So these 3 are going to be essential parts of your research report. And next week, when I get into a preview of all the databases that we have available to us at UMKC, I'll direct your attention towards where you can find those. So you don't necessarily have to do it yourself because it's been done for you, but you do have to find these other research reports, read these other research reports, and maybe supplement or add to anything that they might be lacking. Okay, so let's look at each of these. Here's Porter's value chain analysis shows of all the profit that comes in through the logistics chain. So typically when our authors are analyzing the accounting, it's a little bit easier if we think about it in terms of a manufacturing organization. So if we're thinking about a manufacturer, then the value chain becomes all of the sourcing of the materials that it takes to make the widgets, all the human resources and capital and work in progress and overhead that it takes to make the widgets, all the outbound logistics, marketing, sales, servicing, warranties, so on and so forth. And then all of that flows through to your gross and net profit margins. And Porter kind of laid out this framework where he said you ought to be able to take a look at that value chain and identify which segments of that value chain are the most important aspects of the finished good or service. And in doing so, a lot of times that'll position the managerial consultant with some knowledge to make informed decisions on how they might want to restructure that company in the future. And you know, this is that old movie Office Space. I don't know if any of you in this class ever watched Office Space, but there are 2 consultants in that movie that they called the Bobs, and they got paid to come in and do this exact analysis. And then you know how that engagement goes. At the end of it, somebody's getting fired. That's a nifty graphic, but I don't know what it means. So I'm gonna skip it and go to this page, which is a lot simpler and says basically the same thing, because we're talking about Porter's 5 forces. Michael Porter was a Harvard professor that came up with this framework for identifying the competitive position of a company. And he said that your competitive position is a determinant of these 5 forces. How much competition is in your industry? You know, again, I use the examples of Google and Apple and Walmart, certainly with Amazon. They're not subject to much competition. Bargaining power of buyers. So now say, use that Walmart example again. Well, if you're Walmart, you have a lot of bargaining power because you're the buyer. But if you're on the other side of that equation and you're a manufacturer that's selling to Walmart, well, Walmart has all the power in that equation. So you don't have a lot of competitive strength if Walmart is one of your buyers. You really want their business because that's distribution that immediately represents economies of scale for you, but you don't have a lot of power in negotiating the pricing. Bargaining power of suppliers. If the industry is resource constrained, like one I'm thinking of now is the electric battery market for like Teslas and other electric vehicles. That's an industry that's resource constrained because they need lithium to power those batteries. That might be an industry where the bargaining power of suppliers is greater. Threat of substitution. You know, if it's easy to replicate your product or if consumers can go without, then you don't have as much power. That's an obvious one. And then threat of entry. I mentioned a moment ago, barriers to entry. If it's an easy business to just pop up and be on your way, like a financial advisory firm, that's my industry. You know, anybody can start a financial advisory firm tomorrow. That means we have to be on our toes. We don't have a lot of power versus the next advisory firm right down the street. By and large, it's just as easy for them to market themselves with the same service deliverables as we have. So we have to differentiate ourselves in other ways. Okay, SWOT analysis. I'm sure you've all heard of SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You'll need to do one of these for your semester research project, and I can show you where to find some of those on the internet too, through the databases that are available to us. And then your next task is to analyze the competitive position using all of that information: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Well, there's probably a mini research report that you could write on every one of those. So as you go deep into that subject, there'll be plenty of opportunity to tease out the competitive position of the companies that you're looking at. A few examples that our authors use here are barriers to entry, including patents, regulatory, scarce resources, technological innovation, marketing, low-cost leader, so on and so forth. Okay, then learning objective number 5, apply basic profitability analysis. I don't know how much I want to go into this because we're going to spend almost all of module 3 talking about this learning objective. So let me just kind of breeze through here, and you may get a homework question on return on assets, net income, productivity. Star this slide. This might be one that you want to come back to. These ratios should look familiar to all of you. Profitability, net income over sales, return on assets, net income over average assets. This is one tricky thing that you do see in this book and other books, is that the average assets in the denominator is not always average. You'll see people and even authors shortcut that as end of period assets. And I think I've even seen it once or twice in this textbook. Our authors will refer to that denominator as average in one place and use end of period in another place. I tell my students that if it's accounting, well, we can be accurate to the second decimal point. We can get that down to the penny. But as soon as we start to move into the field of finance, which is ratio analysis and forecasting and other analytical work, that's finance. That's not accounting. Well, in finance, it's our job to be directionally correct. If we get it up, up or down, we win. So you'll see a lot of authors and practitioners use really rough estimates of some of these numbers. And if it gets you to where you want to be, meaning that it gets you to the same conclusion and it gets you there faster, well, then you've probably done a better job as a practitioner. So that's kind of the art of it. There's a science to it, but then there's also a huge component of it that's art as well. Okay, productivity and productivity across industries. You see kind of a general trend here, and this is kind of a neat chart that shows profit margin on the vertical axis and productivity on the horizontal axis. Well, as productivity increases, meaning asset turnover increases, your return on assets generally declines. You can see kind of a general correlation there, which is it's kind of interesting. As you do this profitability analysis and ratio analysis, you see certain trends, and you can kind of understand where your company aligns on some of those. Return on equity, I'll skip through that. Okay, explain forecasting the financial process. This is just a preview of what's to come in Module 11. By the time we get to Module 11, we will have done all of the heavy lifting with regard to the accounting and analysis of accounting. After having that firm foundation, we'll use it to forecast financial statements into the future. And as we do so, what we're really after is an examination of what we think a reliable future looks like for the companies in question. And that's how we get back to evaluation. If we knew with certainty what the cash flows of an organization were going to be for the next 10 years, if we knew that with certainty, we would know the valuation with certainty. Now, nobody in this class has a crystal ball, but our belief is, the reason we teach this class is that by having a firm understanding of the accounting and the competitive positioning and everything else we're going to be studying, including the management teams and their motivations, we can gain an edge. We can gain an edge on other market participants and make better informed decisions. And the disciplined practice of that over time can lead to profitable portfolios. Now, that's a huge challenge. And most investors don't do that well for a variety of reasons, because there's a lot of conflicts of interest in this industry. And there's a lot of ways to get rich quick that don't involve the disciplined practice of these techniques over time, that give our industry a little bit of a bad name. But it can be done. And I'm hopeful that by the time we get to the end of the semester, I will have imparted on each of you a general understanding of how you might go about doing that well. And if you're so inclined, I can give you some guidance on where to go in our industry to get a job practicing that same skill set. Okay, 7, I'm going to skip learning objective number 7 and access and analyze financial statement data. Okay, I had a question come in about the 10K and the 10Q. So rather than go through these slides, I'm going to take you all out to the SEC's website. Okay, so might as well make this useful for somebody in class. Chad, since you were first, let's do Vertex, VRTX. So, Chad, you on the call?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure it was somebody on the call, so you got the benefit of it. Okay, so we're going to go to www.sec.gov, and we're going to type in VRTX. And we're going to click on Forms. The SEC has redesigned their website, so bear with me here. Let's figure out, maybe we have to go to company filings.
I think if you scroll, yeah, that'll get you there too.
There we go, VRTX. There we go, this is what I wanted. Okay, so you go to the sec.gov, click on company filings. Let's just go back and do that again for everybody who might have not been paying attention, because I clicked through pretty fast. So I went here first, company filings. So sec.gov, then you click company filings. That's going to take you to a page where you can type in your company's ticker. I typed in VRTX and Vertex Pharmaceuticals pops up. So you're going to want to click on that link. Now, when you click on that link, you're going to get another list of all Vertex's filings. So you can come out here and see not just their quarterly and annual reports, but like I'll scroll down a little bit here and you can see all these Form 4 filings. Well, this is what has to be filed when there's been a beneficial change in ownership. So if the management team is buying or selling company stock, they have to file a Form 4, which is extremely informative for us as an investor, because it ought to raise some questions if your management team is selling their own stock. I mean, if they're bailing in droves, that's probably not a stock you want to buy, or at least it's not gonna be a very defensible position if the stock takes a dive in a month after the management team just sold off 1 million shares. Now, there's a lot of reasons they might sell. They might be financing a wedding or going on vacation or whatever, but it ought to be a little pink flag to you. Okay, here's the 10Q filing. So this is the quarterly report that we just mentioned. Go out, find that. These 8K reports are interesting. So any material change, this is a current report at the company. So if they've made a press release or something else like that, you might want to look at that. And then beyond that, we're looking for the proxy and the 10K. Here is, I don't know what that is. This PX 14 AG. I thought it was proxy, but that's not it. It's something else. Notice of exempt solicitation submitted by non-management. So, yeah, Chad, click on that one. That might be interesting. That sounds like a non-manager shareholder petitioning other shareholders for something. Might be of interest. Okay, so doesn't look like the 10K was on the first page of SEC filings. So you'll come down here, you'll click on next 40, right down here. And you'll click on that and it'll take you to the next page. And on the next page, you can see another 10Q filing, and here's the proxy. DEFA 14A is the kind of the code that's attached to the proxy. So Chad, click on that. You're going to get a bunch of great information about the proxy. You can see that there might have been an error in one of those because they filed 3 back to back to back. Click on the most recent, see if it gives you the information that you want there. Vertex Pharmaceuticals. And it looks like, yep, you got the invitation to the annual meeting. That was April 9th, 2020. And that's all you had in that one. So go back, maybe click on the one down below with additional information. Okay, like this proxy filing, it shows up in the mail, and it looks like that you had your ballot came as one filing, you had your cover page as another one, and then this third one down here, yeah, this looks like the one with all the information that you're going to want. So you got to do some digging to find these things. Yep, here it is. So here's a letter to shareholders, notice of annual meeting, kind of the summary of what's going on in the company. Looks like you have some prepackaged kind of management marketing material, an overview of the board of directors, and here we go. 2019 compensation decisions and pay for performance. This is what you want, Chad, right here, as well as kind of a summary of everything else that's in this document. So here's the corporate governance I was talking about. I want you to be familiar with that. Reference the article I posted on Canvas. Keep scrolling here. Just kind of click on all these other sections. Look at the shareholder report, compensation discussion and analysis. Make sure you read that. Find out how much these people are getting paid. Find out what their incentive comp is linked to. Find out if they have an options package. Find out if they have any conflicts of interest. Sometimes the conflicts of interest can be really interesting. You know, these management teams, they'll hire their nephew to do all sorts of weird stuff. This is a great section right here. There you get some long-term equity options there. So I want to know what's going on there. Okay, so that's the proxy. Let me X out of that. And then the other thing that you need to find is the 10K filing. So you're going to have to click on next 40 again, go to the next page, and there's the 10K right there. $10K. Okay, and this is going to be huge. These are usually 60, 70 pages.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Do you have any reservations about getting the filings directly from the company's website versus getting it from SEC?
No, you read my mind, James. That was going to be my next comment. A lot of times it's easier to go to the company's website because when you go to the SEC's website, you get them in that format. And that's not the most user-friendly format. If you go to the company's website, you can get them in PDF files that are a lot easier to deal with. So in that instance, let's go up here to Google and type in Vertex. And let's type in investor relations. So do this, whatever your company's name, type it in with investor relations. And look at that, it's the first link that comes up. and you have sublinks to events and presentations. So that's probably a great place to start, Chad. Look at the presentations that Vertex has already prepackaged for you. You have investor resources, financial information, and press releases. So let's go to that site and see what's out there. If it'll boot up. Well, it doesn't seem to be pulling up. I don't know why. I'll click on one of these others. But while we're waiting here, what I would expect for you all to see out there is, just like James mentioned, a better version of that 10K filing, some press releases, probably got the proxy out there as well. So take a look at that. Should have everything that you need for kind of to get yourself started. So that's one of the biggest challenges with this research report, is just a sense of overwhelm and trying to figure out where to get started. So the company's investor relations page should be towards the top of your list. It should be number 1 and number 2 should be the company's investor relations page and the Morningstar research report. That's going to give you a huge head start on all this. And then we can backfill with all the other materials that we're going to need for the semester. Okay, gang, that's module 1 and an overview of the class and what I wanted to cover tonight. So I'm going to kind of open it up to you for questions, comments, feedback. You saw the syllabus. We're going to meet again next week, same time, same place. We'll talk about module 2. I'll give you an overview of some other resources, take questions, and we have begun. Okay. So again, this is where I would ask, you know, I'm happy to hold the line if you have a question, but I really prefer that you ask it before class ends, because again, I know that if there are questions out there, other people have them too. So it just really helps me if you kind of ask those questions to the group so we can all address them together. But otherwise, class dismissed. It's great
I have
to.
a question.
Yeah, please.
So I know you showed us where like you find the list of companies that are approved through Morningstar.
Yep.
But where do you find the Morningstar research report exactly?
Great question. If you go to that list, so here's another pro tip. Not all of the companies on this list will have a Morningstar research report. Some of the companies on this list are only scored by Morningstar's quantitative ranking system, and they don't have a qualitative report that's actually written by an analyst. So when you're selecting your company, it's a smart thing to click through and confirm that they have an actual research report. So you can see here, I pulled up that list and I just clicked on Starbucks. And when I click on Starbucks, these fields come up over here. And next I want to click on this analyst research report. So I'm going to click on wait, and I'm going to click on analyst research. And when I click on analyst research, you can see that it's pulling up a company report right here. So look for that and then click on that. And then you're going to get this Starbucks report. There's a little download button right over here. So click on that download button and you can open that up in a PDF file. Sure, should be able to. Anyway, I don't know why it's not opening up for us right now, but you can see through the window here that we've just downloaded all the information that was written by their analyst on Starbucks, including a profile of the firm, and they're going to have some basic competitive analysis in this report. So the task that you have coming out of module 1 to understand your company and where they lie on the competitive spectrum and what their economic moat looks like, that's all been done for you already. Now your job as an analyst isn't done, because I need for you to exhibit to me that you have the analytical skill set, not just to parrot Morningstar's views, but to actually put forth your own views. Now, if you want to substantiate some of them by citing Morningstar, along with another 5 or 6 data points that you've compiled over the course of the next 16 weeks, great. That's what analysts do. But this will give you a huge head start right there, economic moat. So that should answer your question about where to get that report. Start with that, start with the investor relations tab, start with the proxy, and we'll be off.
And then also,
You
I
ma-
don't know if you, sorry. I don't know if you've already mentioned this or not, but so the proxy research that we do for module 2, that needs to be saved for the research paper, correct?
Yes. The proxy research that you do for module 2 will be part of that finished research project.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And another question came in over the chat, said that does the proxy always show up as DEFA 14A? And the answer to that question is yes. And I wish the answer to that question wasn't yes, because it'd be a lot easier if it just showed up as proxy. That's what everybody calls it. But the SEC labels it DEF 14A. So I apologize for making your lives more difficult.
You mentioned that one of the hardest parts about doing valuations is kind of knowing where to start, which I can agree with. Would you say that this class is structured in a way that kind of helps us figure out, the correct order of going about this?
Man, I hope so. I really hope so. It's the challenge with my "I hope so" comment is that when you get out there into the real world of investing, you'll find out that there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, and there are investors who are focused on momentum, and investors who are focused on growth stocks, and investors who are focused on value stocks, and they call these different styles. And if you have a certain style, then you may have a tendency to focus in on a unique niche or a unique industry or a particular factor or data point that helps you substantiate an edge. So I want to answer your question, I hope so, or yes, but there are a lot of deviations to that. And we come at it in this class, as you would expect, with a real analytical viewpoint. Warren, one of my favorite quotes from Warren Buffett, and you'll hear me quote him dozens of times throughout the semester, is that the stock market in the short term is a voting machine. But in the long term, it's a weighing machine. And what he means when he says that is that in the long term, what's going to determine the value of any stock is that stock's ability to earn cash flows. And that's what this course is focused on. We focus on the long run. And by applying a disciplined analytical skill set over the long run, we feel like we can get an edge. But there's a lot of investors out there focused on the short run. So maybe if you're a political analyst and you think that you can gain an edge by forecasting who's going to win the next political election and the stocks that are likely to benefit from that, well, you may be able to profit in the market. That's not really how this class is set up. So long-winded answer, but great question.
Is there a specific format that you want the proxy report in?
No, And I don't have a great example for that. Just 2 pages of information. Just dump it in a Word document. Doesn't have to be pretty. Later this semester, when you include that same information in your research report, it'll need to be pretty. But for the purposes of getting this done next week, I have that as the very first assignment in this class for a reason. And the reason is I want you to understand how your management team gets paid, because that's going to frame up a lot of our conversations moving forward, because you'll see the accounting changes the ratios and the earnings per share and the growth estimates that are key elements in these pay packages. And I believe that it's way, way, way too common to see management teams making decisions for the wrong reasons, meaning they'll make decisions that get them paid at the expense of what you would do if you were the single shareholder of a company. If you owned it all, well, you'd make decisions like an owner would. But if you're managing the company and, well, you're not a real owner, or you're kind of a real owner, but you also have this huge payday out there. If you can just drop another penny to the bottom line next quarter, well, there's a lot of ways you can do that with the accounting, but it's really just playing accounting games. So we're going to try to peer through that this semester and identify some of those shenanigans that happen too often in corporate boardrooms.
I noticed you have the SMF add-in. I know a few years ago that kind of stopped working. So I'm assuming that that's probably not going to be a usable resource for us that's on the Canvas page.
Yeah, are you familiar with that one?
Yeah, I used to use it long before I came into the MSF program, when I was, doing my own evaluations and looking into company.
Well, that's the first time I've ever encountered anybody that had used it before. Yeah, for this class and for the purposes, I even used it outside of this class. I had it all set up to import financial statements, but yeah, it was working for me as of 2 semesters ago. Last semester was the first time that it broke down completely, and I couldn't get any students to successfully use that thing. So yeah, I'm gonna have to scrap it. I purposefully didn't make mention of it tonight. I'm gonna delete it from the Canvas page so as not to confuse anybody. But yeah, that's unfortunate, because it was really a great piece of software and it was free.
Yeah, I think the place for the financial statements moved into like Bitcoin and locked up all the financial statements. And that's, for me at least, why it fell to like FMV. I forget what the name of the website was. Yeah. But that's where I was pulling everything from, and then it just kind of collapsed. So,
well, everything that we need is available through Morningstar. So that's just as convenient, and it's all downloadable directly into Excel. So It doesn't really hamper our efforts much. But yeah, I'm impressed that you had stumbled into that before, because it was a neat piece of software.
It was. Once you figured out how to code it, it was magnificent.
Yeah, it could accomplish nearly 90% of what FactSet could accomplish. And when I was working at the Buffalo Funds, we used FactSet for all that, and I think we were paying $35,000 a year per terminal for that. So to replace that for free was pretty remarkable.
Question about jumping into Morningstar. So when we're on there, if we're looking at these companies and they don't have up-to-date analyst reports, or some of them from years previously, I'm assuming we should just shy away from those companies so that we can pull the most up-to-date reports. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, you don't have to, but I think you'd be doing yourself a favor. If they have up-to-date reports, then that's really going to help you out. If they don't have up-to-date reports, then you can gather that information elsewhere. It's just going to be more of a heavy lift for you as the analyst. But I'm not going to tell you to not do that if there's a company on that list that maybe you've looked at it before, or maybe you know somebody that works there, or maybe you want to work there in the future. have at. But yes, you're
No,
thinking.
thanks. I
you're thinking
appreciate it.
spot
I'll
on.
try to avoid that heavy lift.
Yeah, you and I think alike.
And I have one more question about the proxy assignment.
Yeah.
So under the last subsection, you said analysis of corporate governance policies, and we should consult the database. Could you please just give a brief overview of what you're looking for in that section so that when I work on it, I could be like a little more directed?
Yeah, not all companies do a great job of reporting on corporate governance. Corporate governance is not something that's required by the SEC, but it's getting a lot of attention in this day and age to eliminate conflicts of interest. So there are rubrics and best practices, and those are, you'll find some of those on our Canvas page under modules, proxy analysis, corporate governance terminology. So you can click on this to kind of educate yourself about what corporate governance is. And then I want you to look for some of these terms in the proxy. So Vertex, when we clicked on Vertex a minute ago, they actually did have a section in their proxy devoted to corporate governance. So Chad, you're working on Vertex. I want you to capture that.
Yeah.
You know, Fiona, maybe you pick a company that has very limited information on corporate governance. So what you'd do is you'd go over here, you'd look at all these terms, and then you try to identify any of those terms inside of the proxy. But if they weren't explicitly outlined, or if they didn't have a section on corporate governance, then just tell me that. And that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, gang. Well, this is exciting. We're off. I always get kind of pumped up when we start a new semester. It's fun to start, and then it turns into a little bit of a grind. I'll just kind of warn you. I'll try my hardest to keep it semi-entertaining. Some of this material is just, yeah, it's hard to liven up, man. It's tough. So we'll get through it together. I'll try to bring some stories where I have them and make it as lively as I can. And then towards the end of the semester, it starts to pick up again too and get a little bit more interesting as we pull it all together with these research reports. So I am looking forward to it. Reach out to me via email, text, Canvas, whatever works for you, and I'll try to be as responsive as I can. And don't ever feel like you're hounding me if you need an answer. Just stay on top of me. You won't hurt my feelings. So with that, I'll just say good night, and I'll see you again next week. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Have a good night.